Jeez, what a racket. Hi, I'm Mike. Welcome to my waffle square, where I obsess about things and you get to benefit from it. So whenever I get hyper-focused onto a subject, Brooke laughs and tells the kids, Daddy is stuck in a waffle square, thus the name of this channel. So in our last video, this RZR 170 wouldn't even start. And if that's your problem, I would suggest you watch that one first, but we got it up and running. We diagnosed the fuel system and the ignition system, and we even changed out the carburetor for a new, cheap replacement one. It is now starting very easily. It'll run at an idle, but it sounds awful. So in this video, I want to address that carburetor. There are a couple of screws on it that we can adjust while it's running right now and see if that fixes the problem. And then if not, there are internal things that we can get to, including different sized jets and all of it. So let's get to it. So to access the two screws, the pilot air and the idle screw, we're going to need to reach through here while the engine's running to make those adjustments. I tried it with this back cover on, and it's possible but really uncomfortable, and I couldn't see what I was doing very well. And so for my comfort and the purpose of having a good camera angle, I'm going to remove this guy. He's not too tough. It's just a matter of removing 6 10mm bolts. Then there's 2 Phillips screws underneath and 2 of those door panel pop-out plastic plugs. So let's get to that. Now for these little plastic door panel plugs, I found it's easiest to start them with a flathead screwdriver to get the center portion to come out. And once you get that, you can reach in here with this little panel remover tool and get it the rest of the way out. And finally, coming straight up, right in here, there are 2 Phillips screws, one on each side. All right. See, we can see you straight back there, and we'll have an area to reach right here, so much better. So according to the manual, the pilot air screw base setting when you service and replace the carburetor should be 2 1/4 turns out. So that means we need to gently get this guy all the way in, which is right there, and then 2 1/4 turns out. Be careful not to go too tight because you can damage the needle. All right, half turn, 1, half turn, 2, and 1/4. So when it comes to adjusting the idle, the recommended RPM, according to the service manual, is 1700 plus or minus 100. And I want to be pretty accurate about that. I've seen some other videos where they say just adjust it till it sounds good. I'm not qualified enough to do that. So there's a couple easy choices for you when it comes to small engine tachometers. One is this engine RPM app on your phone. I tried it out and I'm not sure how good it's working because there's so much rattling and so much backfiring going on with this engine right now. So I went ahead as a backup and also purchased this little tachometer here. You can see just how small it is, but this wire that you see wraps 5 times around the spark plug wire, and that should give us a pretty accurate reading. So the app is $9 and this little tachometer is $12. So let's see how they work. I got 5 wraps of that sensor wire wrapped around the spark plug wire and zip tied with the supplied zip tie. So the next thing we want to do is start the engine and let it warm up so we can adjust that carburetor. So So it's pretty obvious to me that the idle is running real high, and therefore it looks like the little tachometer is much more accurate and the phone app is way off. All right, now let's reposition underneath with the tachometer right near that carburetor, and let's adjust that way down to the 1700 range where it belongs. So with the engine warmed up and the choke fully off, it's time to turn the idle screw, in our case counterclockwise, to lower the RPM. Now let's adjust the pilot air screw. We want to see if we can go either direction and have the engine go up in idle. Nope. So let's back out and start it up again. We'll try going the other way. So this certainly is a much better, smoother idle. It's no longer sputtering or backfiring. It sounds pretty good. The problem is when you start going through the range of the accelerator, you still get it. And it bogs down a little at full throttle. So I asked Brooke to take it out and drive it back and forth up the street, and it drove great for her, as you can see here. Just to confirm, we're having Mama take it out for a bit. I'm expecting it to bog out. It is.
It's running a lot.
So I don't hear it backfiring or anything. No. When you're full on the gas, is it like bogging down though, like it wants to die, or?
No, not at all. It's running more like it used to. So way more. But I'll gas it all the way up and all the way down. You can listen for it again. But
all right. Let me know how it feels when you got it full throttle.
All right.
The only problem is if you stomp on it from a standstill, it'll bog down and almost die, which is indicative of a lean mixture. But no matter how much I adjusted the pilot air screw back and forth, I could never get it to a really good spot. That leads me to believe, if you watch this fantastic video here all about small engine carburetors, that we could be looking at an issue with the jets not being proper for what this engine needs, and also the altitude we're at here, which is only 2,200 feet. So it might be better to see if we get improved performance by taking apart that old carburetor that we swapped out, clean it all out, rebuild it per the specs in the manual, and see if that improves the performance. So let's do that next. So here is the original carburetor that we replaced in the last video. Before we get started disassembling all the parts, I want to get all this surface dirt off because this thing's filthy. So I've got a bottle of carburetor cleaner that's going to help us with this whole project here. All right, according to the manual, the first step is to take out the 3 screws holding in the float bowl. So I'm just going to open up this little vent here to make sure that nothing else comes out of it. We had drained it before, but just to make sure. Good. All right, these are 3 Phillips screws. There's a gasket holding this on, so there we go. All right. You see that in there? There's a little bit of what they would call varnish in there. See how I can make a clean spot? So that'll, oh, and there's a lot of debris down there. That'll be really good to get that all clean. Thankfully, this gasket still looks pretty good. This little needle here isn't damaged, so that's cool. All right, then we want to take off the float pin, the float, and the inlet needle. This little guy just comes right off. Let's set him in there. This is the float pin. This is the float. And then the needle, the inlet needle is inside here. So let's see how we can push out that pin. Oh yeah. There's a little pin right there. Boy, that looks like it's in really good shape. All right, so this little guy right here is the pilot jet, and we want to remove that next. Okay, he doesn't look too bad. This guy right here is the main jet, the emulsion tube, and the needle jet. And all 3 of those need to come out. Let's give them their own container. All right. Lots of little holes on here and a bunch of grime, so it'll be nice to get that cleaned up. All right, I can still see that little needle jet down in there, so I've got a little shish kebab skewer. I'm going to see if I can push it out like this. There it is. Okay. And lastly, we have the idle screw and the pilot air screw. We're going to remove those and clean them too. I can hear our rooster in the background. He doesn't know that it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. All right. There's a special little D-tool that's used for these. I don't have one, but let me see if I can just twist it out of here. Yeah, that's pretty loose. All right, that completes the disassembly process. The manual says the next thing to do is thoroughly clean all those ports with carburetor cleaner. So I'm going to go ahead and put the straw on here and get to it. Okay, now the body. Well, that carb cleaner has really disintegrated these gloves, so I don't want little bits of it getting into the carburetor as we put it back together. So let's switch them out. So I found this interesting. I looked really close, and if you see here, the main jet is a 132 and the pilot jet is a 38. So I made note of that, and if this carburetor works better when we're done putting it back together and testing it on the UTV, then it might be worth taking apart the one that comes in the mail to see what the jet numbers are on it and if those might correspond to your altitude or a particular model. Okay, so the manual also said to take a little bit of low pressure air and spray out all the little orifices. So I put some more carburetor cleaner in there and sprayed all those out. Did the same with the little needle jets. And I think we're ready to start putting stuff back together. So why don't we go in reverse order, and we'll start with the idle adjustment screw and the pilot air screw. That's all the way in, so let's go half, 1, half, 2, and 1/4. Next, let's put back together the main jet, the emulsion tube, and the needle jet. Now the needle jet, as I looked at it, didn't have any markings on it at all, so. Oh, there it goes. And now the main jet. Next, we'll put in the pilot jet. Now for the float, the little inlet needle here slid off, but as you can see, it just goes up like that and in. There we go. And then we slide the pin right through there. Now, what it says to do in the manual is to just take the pressure off like that, and it should basically be parallel with this line right here where the float bowl attaches to. So that looks pretty good. All right, this little plastic piece that looks like the cone of shame you put on your dog's neck after a vet visit. Next thing, we're ready to put the float bowl back on. I'm going to put just a little bit of lubricant on there, just because I sprayed carburetor cleaner all over it. Let's make sure it doesn't dry out and crack. All right, same thing around this little guy. All right, time to take out the replacement carb and put this one back in. I showed step by step how to do that in my last video, so check that out if you need to. The next clip, it'll be in, and we'll try firing it up and see if we can tune this guy in better with the idle and pilot air mixture. Well, I went through the same process of setting the idle and then trying to adjust the pilot air screw. Again, I didn't notice any real difference. You're supposed to get a raising or a lowering of the RPM to tell you when you're in the sweet spot with that air mixture. I couldn't get that, so I just kept adjusting it a little until the throttle response was the best. And that's pretty much the best I could get out of the original carburetor. And to be honest, it's the same as I got out of the replacement carburetor. Now watch this when you really stomp on it in neutral. It bogs out, and that leads me to believe there is still an issue with it being lean, but nothing I seem to do really fixes it. However, I'm gonna leave it just like this with the original freshly cleaned carburetor on it, because other than when it's sitting here in neutral and not all that responsive, this is how it is with the kids riding it. All right, you guys ready?
Yeah.
Get it. There you go. There they go. Yeah, how'd it run?
Really good. Really, really smooth.
Good, that's good to hear. You happy?
Uh-huh.
That's what I wanted. Thank you, baby.
No problem.
And as a dad, that's really all I need to hear. Run smooth, and they're giggling and can't wait to get it out into the dirt. Now, one quick observation that I discovered. I'm going to close up on this so you can see what I'm talking about. So it is imperative that the notch in the throttle valve slide be perfectly lined up with the idle screw, because if not, it can jam, and no matter what you do trying to set that pilot screw, it'll just be on practically full throttle, and I learned that the hard way today. So I was curious, I took off the float bowl and I checked the two jets that come with the carburetor I got off of Amazon. The main jet is 100 versus the 132 on the original. The pilot jet is 35 versus 38 on the original. So for that reason alone, I think you're better off just servicing your existing carburetor unless it's just beyond repair, because it may very well have been serviced and jetted properly for your altitude. Now, if you found this video helpful, will you please give it a thumbs up? It really helps the YouTube algorithm to start suggesting it to more people. Also, please consider subscribing. I've been working really hard on these videos, and I'm hoping that they're really helpful, and there's more to come. Now, I'm going to leave a link to the tachometer and this carburetor I got off of Amazon, since it does work, and if yours is not functional for some mechanical reason, you can use this one and have success. Now, full disclosure, those are Amazon affiliate links, so if you click on them and end up making a purchase, it won't cost you a thing, but I do get a small reward at the end of the month that helps to justify the time it takes to make these videos. Until next time, thank you for watching.